lifestyle strategies, some tools that you can use to dial down the heat and increase moisture in your body to protect yourself from flus and colds this season. All right, so these are for dry, hot people. So people who are living in Florida, it depends on where you live, but it's pretty, like Sherry, I think you're down there. You live in a very moist environment. Mish, I think it's the opposite. You're in a little more dry environment up there in Michigan. All right, but anyhow, the tools that you can use to restore your defense system that keeps you healthy all year long. Okay, ready? Let's start with just like low-hanging fruit. First of all, start by getting the humidity up in your home, right? You can place, if you don't have a whole house humidifier, you can place a room humidifier right by your bed at night. So that's 7 or 8 hours that you can take in a little bit more moisture. Don't put the humidifier directly on you. Place it further away from the bed so it's putting out humidity in the whole room. If you don't have a humidifier but you need it right now, just take a big pot from your kitchen, like I have them in my kitchen now, and I would fill up a giant pot or a soup pot of water, turn it on to boil, and then down to simmer, and leave it on all day if you're in the house. Of course, be careful if you're going places, turn off a stove, right? But even just having a warm pan of hot water on the stove will increase the humidity in your house, right? Some of you know that. All right, what else? Increase your fluid intake. Makes sense, right? Drink plain old water, right? Room temperature, because we learned this in the last video, cold injures digestion, right? Also, avoid caffeine and sugary drinks, right? Because caffeine itself depletes fluids. It's a diuretic, right? And sugar, well, sugar is just not the most healthy way to improve moisture, even though it does add dampness to the body. It's not the kind of dampness we're looking for here. Another one is to stop drinking cold drinks. All right, now this may seem a little counterintuitive to you people who feel hot and you had all the maybe 5 or more of those symptoms I talked about earlier, right? But cold food and drinks aren't the only way to counteract heat in the body, and I'll talk about some alternatives later in a minute or so. Coldness injures digestive function. I'll say it again. So keep your drinks at room temperature, or even a little warm. Another important thing to do here is to eliminate drying foods and drinks. So what am I talking about? Well, I mentioned one before, caffeine, right? Caffeine's drying, it's a diuretic, it takes water out of the body. The opposite of the thing we want to do in a dry, hot situation. Spicy food. Spicy food heats us up. We may enjoy it and love the flavor, but it may not be the best thing for us when we are having a hot or heat imbalance. Dry crackers. Just think about these as I'm saying them. Dehydrated food. Hot natured spices like pepper and paprika, and especially smoked paprika and cayenne pepper and all the different types of spicy peppers, right? Sour fruit. Why is sour fruit drying? And what do I mean by sour fruit? So I'm talking about green apples and green grapes, some of them, some types of berries, grapefruits, lemon. Think about it. Sour things, they make you pucker, right? Why do they do that? Because they are astringing the tissues in your mouth. They're not necessarily drying, but they're not immediately moistening, and that's what we're looking for in a hot, dry constitution, right? What about foods and spices and herbs that are beneficial for a hot, dry person like you? Well, rather than running to the refrigerator like you've been doing, looking for cold foods and drinks to put out the fire, so to speak, start looking for foods and spices and herbs that do the job more effectively without creating the opposite problem. You want to balance, not swing the problem the other way and turn hot into cold. You're looking for substances that lubricate, that moisten, that tonify the yin, right? And restore hot, dry tissues to normal fluid and temperature levels. So some of the things that you can do that with are sweet flavored, and I mean flavored, not sweet added, fruits and vegetables. And why is that? Because sweetness will moisten. Not because it's sugary, but because it's moistening. These are the same foods that you damp, mucousy people in the last video I talked about have to avoid. So we're talking about foods like bananas, avocados, dates, figs, raisins. These are gummy, thick. Think about the texture of these, right? These are foods you want because they're moistening and gooey and sticky. Sweet apples tend to be actually pretty good for moistening the body. Peaches, melons, other kinds of sweet fruits. Beets, now those definitely have a sweet flavor. Cucumbers, which have a tendency to be sweet, but are also very moistening. Green beans, winter squash like butternut, right? Sweet potatoes, mushrooms. Now, I know that's not necessarily a sweet food, but it's definitely a moistening food. So you get the idea, right? These foods have a sweet flavor without adding sugar that might cause other problems. That's why they're good for you. All right, this one will make sense to you. Oily foods and just oils themselves like sesame oil, ghee, which is deeply nourishing, and olive oil. Using these in your cooking and adding them to your food will help to counteract dryness. And yes, these principles still apply all year long regardless if you have a hot, dry constitution. Mish. I talked about using oils topically. There's a procedure, there's a practice in Ayurvedic medicine called panchakarma. And for vatas, or people who are dry, and pittas, they will take those kind of people and really just cover them head to toe in oils to moisten them and counteract all the dryness in their bodies. So you can do this at home on your own. You can add sesame oil, like a 1/4 cup of sesame oil, to a bathtub and soak yourself down in there and get your hair all oily and then go to bed, and your body will absorb those oils overnight. Okay, so since I'm an herbalist, I'm going to talk about herbs for a minute. We won't go deeply into this, but I want to give you a basic idea of what kind of herbs you would look for. For example, maybe you've got some of these at home, or you're just getting familiar with herbs and herbal medicine, and you just need to familiarize yourself with some of the words or some of the herbs or plants that are useful. So let me just run down a list here in my head about the kinds of herbs that are moistening and cooling for a hot, dry person. So one of the first ones that you might think of is commonly used in hot, dry climates for people who are experiencing burns or burns on the skin, for example, or even used by other people just to take out the heat of something like reflux. And of course, I'm talking about aloe. So the aloe plant is cooling and gooey and moistening and perfect for somebody who has a hot, dry constitution. And there are lots of ways you can get aloe into your diet if you want to, but I don't recommend trying a lot of it. I recommend trying it a couple teaspoons or tablespoons of it to see how your body likes it. Okay, it can really cool down your digestive system. Marshmallow root. Look for teas that contain things like marshmallow root, slippery elm, mullein leaf, licorice, of course, licorice, very moistening. Asparagus root is something used in Ayurvedic medicine for women to help balance hormones, especially those in their menopausal years who are having a lot of hot flashes, right? So asparagus root, violet leaf, red clover flower, elder flower, elecampane we use a lot for hot and cold conditions that where you're trying to get a little mucus up out of the lungs and produce a cough that's productive. Linden flower is another one that's very moistening to the body. So many of these are available in teas that you'll find in the store. Teas that start with the word throat or cough. Those will be your moistening teas. And you don't just need to drink them if you have a dry throat or dry mouth or cough. They can moisten up your whole body. All right, so once you start incorporating some of these food and drink suggestions, you're going to start to feel the effects in your body slowly over time, and maybe even immediately if you're really parched. So the high points of this video, let me hit them real quick here. Increase your cooling, moistening foods and herbs. Decrease hot, drying foods, right? Bring up the humidity in your house and start increasing your fluid intake. So is this all just too much for you to digest? Are you looking for something like a more personal approach that's really specific to you? Please reach out to me for a face-to-face, in-person herbal consult, or set up a FaceTime appointment. I'll give you the link below this video. I appreciate you joining me today on this live video. One more thing, ask a friend to join the Natural Healing Omaha Support and Encouragement Facebook page so they can learn simple ways to stay healthy all year long too. All right, I'll see you guys next time.